Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. It's Lisa from Crafting and Cruising, and I am, in fact, cruising down the road. And guess where I'm going? To the Hoblob. I need some Christmas greenery for a couple of projects I want to do. And so I'm heading there to do some shopping. And I don't have any particular time schedule, so I can just take my time walking through and seeing what all is out. I'm gonna try to go live from in there, you guys, but what I have found is that Hobby Lobby does not have great reception for Wi-Fi. So I'll probably turn my Wi-Fi off and try on cellular data, but if it goes in and out, kind of hang with me for a minute to see if it'll come back on. It may or may not. If not, I may go off and try the other way, and if that doesn't work, then I'll just give up, because I think when I've tried it before, it just doesn't work. But I've kind of hit one of those walls, those creative walls, you know, where I have a schedule of everything I want to do this month, since I'm committed to going live every day this month for Christmas in July, to do something Christmassy every day. So I have a schedule. I've deviated from that a little bit, but I kind of have just hit a wall. So I thought maybe if I went to Hobby Lobby to get the greenery and walked through, something would jump out at me. And also, I just wanted to talk a little bit about making decisions and the importance of paying attention when you're making decisions. By the way, when you jump on, say hi, and if you watch the replay, please let me know you watch the replay. You know, there's some decisions in life that are very simple to make. I'm in my car and I'm going to Hobby Lobby. When I get to the stop sign, I'm going to decide to turn my blinker on. If it's raining, I'm going to decide to have my windshield wipers on. I'm going to decide every morning when God gives me another day to wake up to that I'm going to get up and do something. So some decisions are just basic life decisions. And some decisions are very spur of the moment. You know, got to be quick on the draw and just hurry up and make the decision. Am I going to grab that parking spot, or am I going to let somebody else have it? You know, I got to hit my brakes because suddenly this car in front of me has stopped. So there's decisions that are just real life, basic instinct decisions we have to make. And then there comes a time where you have to make bigger decisions in life. You know, are we going to stay in the house we're in, or are we going to move? Are we going to take a family vacation this year, or are we not? Are we going to buy a new or used car, or are we not? Do I need to take a different direction in my business, or do I not? Things like that are much more profound, can be life-changing or life-altering decisions, that it's not smart to just fly by the seat of your pants and make a decision. And I will be the first to admit that many times in my life I have done just that. I have not prayed about it. I have not talked to anybody else to get their opinion about it. I've just reacted when something came along and said, oh yeah, I think I'm going to do that. Bam, and I did it. And some of those times it worked out great, and some of those times it didn't work out so great. And either way, whatever decisions and choices we make all day, every day, there are natural consequences or results of those decisions, and we have to live with them. We have nobody to blame but ourselves if it doesn't work out. Nobody to pat on the back but ourselves if it does work out. So life choices and big major decisions are not something, in my opinion, and especially at my age, that I can just jump into and not really give it the appropriate amount of attention that it needs. So I had, or have, a couple of decisions coming up in my life, and neither one of them are bad, or so don't think that, but they're major decisions for me, and I could not make those decisions on my own because they don't just affect me. And that's the other thing you have to consider, is what is my choice going to do, or how is it going to affect potentially other people, especially your family. So these couple of decisions are not decisions that I can take lightly or make lightly. Both of them, number one, I have committed to pray about, because I know that I serve a God who has a plan for my life. And He knew that plan before the foundation of the world, definitely before I was even formed in my mother's womb and birthed. He does not drop a note from heaven and say, here is the blueprint for your life, and here's what you do on July 20th at 11:08 a.m. That's not how it works. That's where faith comes in. But you have to have a relationship with Him personally if He's going to be able to give you answers or speak to you, show you, not speak audibly, but just give you peace about situations or decisions. So that's the first thing I have to commit to do. The second thing is I talk to my husband about it, because both of these decisions will affect him too. So I don't need to leave him out of the equation and just say, well, this is something I'm going to do, honey, and I hope you'll go along with it. Being the kind of guy he is, he would do that, but that's not the way I think that it should be approached. So I definitely want his feedback and his input. Now, does that mean that I will make the decision based on what he said solely? Probably not. But I'll put those things together on top of a suggestion or something that my father made me do years ago, and I have done it countless times since then, and I've suggested to other people struggling with decisions to do it, and I think it is incredibly wise counsel to do this. When I was trying to make the decision on whether to move out of my apartment and move back home to my parents' house so that I could go back to college full-time and finish my degree and become a teacher, which is what I wanted to do. Hey, my sweet Aisha. There was a part of me that I was an adult now, and all of my adult friends were going, don't move home now that you've lived on your own and been totally a free bird, making your own decisions. If you try to move back home now, you're going to be under your parents' thumb again, and you're going to hate it, and you're going to wish you still had your apartment, and just don't do it. Just keep going to school part-time. Eventually you'll get your degree, and eventually you'll be able to teach school like you want to, and everything will be fine. And then there were a few people who were going, look, at the rate you're going, it may take you another 3 or 4 years to finish college so you can teach. If teaching children is really what you want to do, get on the ball and get it done, whatever it takes. Move back home with your parents. Bite your tongue when you have to. Go along with whatever you have to go along with just to make it work, so that you don't have to work full time and be able to afford your apartment. So I went and talked to my parents about it. Now, again, remember, I had lived on my own, and I had paid all of these expenses myself and knew what it was like to be self-sufficient. But I was really, really torn. I was enjoying living on my own. I was enjoying dating. I was enjoying not having to answer to anybody except my boss at work. I loved every part of that. I loved being able to eat what I wanted, when I wanted, with whom I wanted or without. Loved it, loved it, loved it. But man, I wanted to be a teacher. I wanted to teach children. That's what I had started college for, and that's what I wanted to do. So my daddy, when I went to talk to my parents about it, my dad said, I want you to get out a sheet of paper, and on the front of it, I want you to write, stay in apartment, and make a line down the middle for 2 columns. And on the top left column, write the word pro, and on the top right column, write the word con. Then flip that sheet over, and at the top right, go back to school, meaning I would move back home with my parents. Do the same thing. Draw a line down the middle. On the left-hand side, put the word pro. On the right-hand side, put the word con. Then I want you to spend the next few days trying to think of anything and everything you could possibly think of to go under each one of those columns on both sides of the paper. For example, what would be some pros of staying in your apartment? Being totally self-sufficient, not having to answer to anybody, having fun when I wanted to, feeling like a big girl and an adult. What would be some cons? Having to pay all the bills and working full-time to do so. Not being able to get my degree as soon as I wanted to. Not being able to teach children as soon as I wanted to. Then flip it to the other side. What would be the pros of going back to school and moving home with my parents? Getting my degree sooner. Being able to teach children sooner. Not having to pay bills so much. What would be some of the cons? Having to live under my parents' roof again, therefore having to abide by their rules. Feeling like I've got to be there at home and be a part of the family because I'm living at home again and depending on them. Things like that. Not being so independent. Not being able to eat what I want when I want. You know, having to consider them too. So it was such good advice, and some things just immediately came to mind, just like I just did right then. In 2 seconds, I, named off pros and cons for both things. But he said, give it a few days and really be thinking hard about anything and everything. I talked to friends. I prayed about it. I really gave it, 2 or 3 days. And I had longer lists of pros and cons on both sides than what I just went through with you guys. So then I was to take the list back to my dad, show it to him, and then he was going to suggest some things that maybe I had not thought of. He did this same process with me when I was getting ready to move into my apartment. And I had a full-time job working in insurance. I was an insurance claims adjuster. Had a full-time job. I so badly wanted to move out on my own, but I was scared to death. And he had me do this same thing. Make a list of pros and cons of staying at home, list of pros and cons of moving out. When I went back to talk to him, and he had told me, he said, make sure that you list all the expenses you think you'll have when you live on your own. So I had done that, and I thought I'd done a good job, man. I had thought this thing through, and I had written down so much stuff, and I knew I had it together. And when I went back and showed it to my dad, he was very complimentary and said he was proud of me. But he said, one thing I don't see on here is car insurance. Oh. Because when I was living at home, my parents were paying my car insurance. I was on their plan. If I moved out, and he told me, if you're going to move out, that's great. You're going to be totally self-sufficient. So I had forgotten about car insurance. Then he said, even though you have medical insurance through your company that you work for, what about co-pays that the insurance company isn't going to pay for? I didn't have that on there. Then he said, one little thing you forgot to put on here is gas. And my parents weren't paying for my gas, but he said gas. You got to include gas in this list. And then he said, I see you have groceries on here, but you don't have eating out, like when you want to eat out with friends. I don't see anything on here for entertainment, like I want to go to a movie with a friend of mine, or I may want to go shopping and buy a few things. You don't have those things on here. And suddenly, where I had a little bit of money left over at the end of the month on my chart, suddenly I was going to be in the red after Daddy talked to me. So he said, you have to do one of two things. You either have to make more money, get a raise or get another job, or you're going to have to cut some of these expenses out. You may not be able to go out to eat. You may not be able to go to the movie. You may not be able to go shopping for a while. You may not be able to get your nails done. You got to learn to work within your budget. So that started that whole process of the list making initially, and then when it came time to going back to school, then the whole process started over again. I see a policeman pulling somebody over. He just turned his lights on, so, but I've got my phone put up on a stand, so it shouldn't be a problem. So anyway, that advice that my dad gave me helped me make the decision on whether or not I was going to go back to school and move home with my parents, or stay in my apartment and just keep going to school part-time. I can tell you this, literally the night before I was going to, the next day, have to turn in a notice to my apartment complex that I was moving out, and I was going to have to register for school full-time. The night before, I still did not have an answer. Excuse me. I had made the lists. I had prayed. I had talked to people. I had looked those lists over ad nauseum, added to. When things came to mind, I still did not know. I was still wrestling. What am I going to do come tomorrow? I have to make a decision. And so that night, before I went to sleep, I prayed, I cried, I was crying, I just cried, prayed. And I said, God, I don't know what to do. I don't know what your plan is for me. I don't have a peace about either one of them. There's a part of me that wants to do both of them. I can't do both of them. I don't know. And I finally, after I cried myself to sleep, went to sleep. And the next morning, and this is all I can tell you, the next morning, when I got out of the bed, I said out loud, I'm going back to school. And it was done. I didn't talk about it anymore. I didn't pray about it anymore. I knew as soon as I woke up, within myself, I had a strong peace that it was time for me to go to school full time, that it was doable for me to move back in with my parents, who loved me dearly and were very good people. It's just that I was going to be an adult living under their roof again. I knew. I just had this inner peace. So now I'm to a point where I've got to make two lists about the two decisions that I have to make. And to some people, they would be simple decisions and they wouldn't be anything that was a big deal. It would be an easy answer. They're not easy answers for me. So I know and have already begun praying about it. That's the first avenue I have to take, and the one that I have to continue on. I have talked to my husband about both of them, and I will continue talking to my husband, and he will help me make the decision. Because I want that same kind of know that I know that I know in my spirit that both decisions, when I make them, are the right thing to do for me and for us. I don't want there to be any doubt. I don't want there to be any confusion. Excuse me, y'all. The Bible says that God does not give us a spirit of confusion or spirit of fear. God is not the author of confusion. So if I feel confused in my spirit, that is not coming from above. That is coming from within, or that is coming from the enemy of my soul, trying to make me doubt. So I will do the most important thing for me in my life, which is pray until I get an answer. I won't make a decision until I get an answer. Once I feel that sense of peace, and once I've made my list, because what will happen when you make lists like that and you start looking at the columns of pros and cons, one of those columns is likely, not definitely, but likely going to have more things, either pro or con, than the other column. That gives you a pretty good hint right there. Maybe I really need to consider doing this or not doing this, because I have a lot more on one side than I have on the other. Sometimes they're about equal. And that's when you can really get in a rut and think, dadgummit, what am I going to do? I just got to keep on pressing through until I know that I know that I know that I know. But most of the time, one column will have more items than the other. And that's a good hint right there. So even if you're not a person that prays, or you're not, a religious person who feels like that's important in your decision, if you will make that list, I think it will help you. It may not give you your answer totally. You still may need outside people helping you, letting you bounce off of them ideas, and then you being still and letting them bounce ideas back off you. Sometimes when you're talking to a trusted friend or family member, have you thought about this, or have you thought about that? And it's like, no, I had not. I'm so glad you told me that. And that will help you figure into the equation. So, that's my little speech for today. It may be my own. That's the second time she's called me. But I love you guys. I hope you have a chance today to be a blessing and to be blessed. And I'll see you later. Bye.